In the 1970s, one British manufacturer dominated construction sites, military bases and motorways across the UK. Bedford Lorries moved the nation. Over 500,000 TK models alone rolled off production lines. Then everything changed. Bedford Vehicles was founded in April 1931 as Vauxhall Motors' commercial arm under General Motors, evolving from Chevrolet trucks first assembled in Britain during the 1920s. By 1939, Bedford dominated commercial vehicle sales across Britain and the Empire. After the Second World War, Bedford expanded its range with buses, vans, military trucks, and the highly successful TK series. Manufacturing later shifted to the rebuilt Dunstable plant. The 1970s marked Bedford's peak, but limited investment left its core models outdated, starting a slow decline. Number 6. Bedford TJ. The Bedford TJ normal control was introduced in 1958 and would be the last of the normal control Bedford trucks. The TJ featured traditional bonneted design rather than the cab-over configuration that dominated the industry through the 1960s and 1970s. The TJ was available with either a petrol or diesel engine. Because of its basic and easily accessible layout, the TJ became very popular in developing countries as an export vehicle. This success drove continued production until Bedford vehicle production stopped entirely. The TJ was very outdated by the 1970s and 1980s, having been based on late 1940s tooling. However, due to good sales, especially in export markets, production continued. The basic design proved advantageous in markets where sophisticated mechanics were scarce and spare parts availability was limited. In 1987, when the company was renamed to AWD Trucks, the Bedford name was still kept on products. Number 5. Bedford KM. The Bedford KM was introduced in 1968 as a heavier-duty version of the TK. The KM used the same cab as the TK, but featured a slightly restyled front end. It was marketed for heavier-duty applications than the TK, specifically for 16 tons and over. The KM shared the basic cab architecture with the TK, but incorporated strengthened chassis components, heavier duty axles, and more robust suspension systems to handle increased payload capacity. The restyled front end gave the KM a more aggressive appearance, appropriate to its heavy-duty positioning. Many developing countries still use aging Bedford KM lorries today. Their robust nature and simple engineering endear them as highly useful vehicles in demanding terrain. This longevity demonstrates the fundamental soundness of the KM design, despite its lack of modern refinements. The KM competed in the crucial 16 to 24 ton segment, where operators needed more capacity than light trucks could provide, but didn't require the expense of maximum weight vehicles. Construction companies favoured KM lorries for aggregate hauling, concrete delivery, and general building site work. The 6-wheel configurations proved popular for applications requiring better weight distribution and traction. Haulage companies specified KM models for regional distribution work, where the combination of payload capacity and manoeuvrability suited urban delivery requirements. The KM's relatively compact dimensions compared to larger competitors made it practical for navigating narrow British roads and congested city centres, while still delivering substantial cargo capacity. Number 4. Bedford MK. The Bedford MK was introduced in 1970 to replace the Bedford RL. The MK represented a military 4x4 variant of the TK used in large numbers by the British Armed Forces and others. It proved very successful, with over 50,000 produced. The Royal Army in 1960 wanted a replacement for the Bedford S, with 4.5 tons load capacity meeting medium mobility specifications, meaning cross-country mobility with optional petrol or diesel engines. For tactical operations, it needed to be air portable. BMC, Roots and Vauxhall submitted prototypes. After comparative trials, the Vauxhall model, based on the 4x2 TK, was selected because it used cheap commercial components, but was given an aluminum body for lightness. Field tests led to a revision back to steel construction, resulting in a first contract for 2,000 vehicles in April 1968. Mass production started in May 1970. Further orders brought total production to around 50,000 vehicles, but many more kits were assembled overseas. New Zealand alone produced around 5,000 of these. From April 1981, Bedford changed the designation of the MK to MJ, as the K multi-fuel engine was superseded by the J diesel engine. This engine change represented the primary distinction between the two designations. The basic TK-MK design used a chassis ladder type layout. Production models used a steel body produced by Marshall of Cambridge Limited. Sides could be folded down as the tailgate or entirely removed, with the body floor featuring lashing points for securing loads. Among the 20 different model versions, the main medium truck of the British Royal Army in the 1970s to 90s became the MK and later MJ. They were used in Northern Ireland, the Falklands, and even the 1991 Gulf War. The Bedford MK was so widely used it was also adopted by the Royal Navy and RAF as a main utility truck. It was confirmed in March 2014 that, with the exception of a handful of light recovery vehicles, all British Army Bedford MK-MJ trucks had been disposed of, replaced by RMM VHX 64 by 4 trucks. Number 3. Bedford TK. The Bedford TK was launched in 1960 to replace the Bedford S-Type. The TK was scheduled to be replaced by the Bedford TL in 1981, but manufacturing of the TK continued as a cheaper alternative. After Bedford's Dunstable factory was sold in 1987 to AWD, the TK restarted production for military-only use until 1992, when AWD was placed in receivership. The TK range served as the basis for a variety of derivatives, including fire engines, military vehicles, horse carriers, tippers, flatbed trucks, and other specialist utilities. A General Post Office version used for installing telegraph poles was known as the Pole King. Available with inline 4 or inline 6 cylinder petrol and diesel engines from Bedford, Leyland and Perkins, the TK was the quintessential light truck in the United Kingdom through most of the 1960s and 1970s, competing with the similar Ford D series. It was available in rigid form and also as a light tractor unit, normally using the Scammell coupling form of trailer attachment. The TK was introduced in 1960 and featured an all-new complete cab-over engine design. This was a bold step, particularly for the UK market, and was soon to be copied by many other manufacturers. Over time, the TK spawned other offshoots, namely the heavier-duty KM and the military 4x4 MK. Over 500,000 TK lorries were produced. They were assembled by General Motors New Zealand at its Petone truck plant for many years. The model was very popular and competed with the locally assembled Ford D series. TK lorries were also assembled by Holden in Australia. In 1981, Bedford introduced turbocharging to the Red Series 3.6 litre and 5.4 litre diesel engines, now producing 72 brake horsepower and 102 brake horsepower respectively. This update helped the aging TK remain competitive as the decade progressed. The TK represented Bedford's engineering philosophy: robust, simple, reliable and affordable. The cab-over design maximised cargo space, while keeping overall vehicle length manageable for urban operations. Construction companies ran TK tippers hauling aggregates from quarries to building sites. Haulage firms operated TK rigids for general distribution work. Local councils specified TK refuse collection vehicles. The TK's success stemmed from hitting the sweet spot between capability and economy. Operators needed vehicles that could handle daily commercial work without the running costs of larger lorries. The TK delivered exactly this combination, making it the default choice for thousands of small and medium businesses throughout the 1970s. Number 2. Bedford KB. Bedford's first partnership with Isuzu came in 1976 when it marketed a rebadged version of the Isuzu faster pickup truck as the Bedford KB. The vehicle was never a strong seller in Britain, but it did pave the way for further collaboration. Subsequent generations were badged as the Bedford/Vauxhall Brava. The KB was otherwise known in other markets as the Chevy Love or the Isuzu Pup. This rebadging arrangement represented General Motors' strategy of leveraging its global subsidiary relationships to fill product gaps in regional markets. The KB introduced Bedford to the light pickup truck segment, a market category where the company had limited previous presence. The Isuzu-sourced vehicle brought proven Japanese reliability and fuel efficiency to the Bedford lineup. However, the British market showed limited enthusiasm for pickup trucks during the 1970s compared to traditional vans and light lorries. The KB featured a 4-cylinder diesel engine, rear-wheel drive, and payload capacity suitable for light commercial work. British buyers typically preferred van bodies that offered weather protection for cargo and better security against theft. Despite modest sales in the domestic market, the KB found some success in export territories where pickup trucks enjoyed stronger cultural acceptance. The partnership with Isuzu proved more significant for its long-term strategic value than for immediate sales volume. This relationship eventually led to more extensive collaboration, including the Bedford Midi van based on the Isuzu Fargo introduced in 1980. Number 1. Bedford TM. The Bedford TM was a heavy goods vehicle manufactured by Bedford Vehicles between 1974 and 1986. Until the TM, Bedford had been building mostly low-specification, short-haul distribution trucks such as the Bedford TK and KM. In view of the increasing popularity of high cabs in the maximum weight long-distance category, such as the Leyland Marathon, Scania L110, and Volvo F88, Bedford designed the TM as a competitor. The TM was introduced in 1974. A thorough update in 1982 left the appearance mostly untouched, perhaps to the detriment of sales of what was a substantially new model. Improvements included the new Detroit Diesel Series, 92 engine, a new chassis, many new engine and transmission options, and a variety of other updated fittings. Through its lifespan, the TM was available with a Bedford 500 turbo engine, also known as the 8.2 Blue, a Detroit Diesel 2-stroke V6 and V8, or a Cummins L10, coupled to either a Fuller or Spicer transmission. The British Army purchased thousands of 4-wheel drive and 6-wheel drive variants. The Bedford TM was the largest of all the modern Bedfords, with payloads available up to 42 tons GTW permissible. The TM was introduced in the mid-1970s and was aimed at the growing heavy-duty European hauler range. The TM was available in 2 cab widths, a narrow width which left a bit of fender protruding from the side of the truck, and also a full width where the cab panels were flush all the way down to the wheels. The TM44 is an 8-ton capacity 4x4 with tilt cab, of which £40 million worth had been ordered by the British Ministry of Defence for delivery from 1980. TM 3800 plated for 38 tons GTW but limited to 32 tons in UK features the Cummins E290 diesel developing 273 brake horsepower, or the Detroit 5th 297 brake horsepower diesel. The model finally bowed out in 1986 with the collapse of its parent company. The UK military continued to use some 4-wheel drive and 6-wheel drive TMs. The TM represented Bedford's most ambitious attempt to compete in the premium long-distance haulage sector. The high-roof sleeper cabs offered driver accommodation approaching European standards. Major fleet operators including BRS, Blue Circle and Tesco ran TM articulated tractors on trunk routes throughout Britain. GM was already considering ditching the brand, but figured it would try to scoop up the truck remains of the massive British Leyland company. However, the British government intervened in the sale. Thus, in 1987, GM sold the Bedford truck business to AWD. It was announced by GM that Bedford would stop production of all commercial vehicles and the Dunstable plant would close in 1986. The truck business was sold to AWD Ltd, which continued TL and military TK based trucks for a time. These 6 Bedford lorries from the 1970s represented the final flowering of British commercial vehicle manufacturing before foreign competition and economic pressures ended domestic production. The TK, KM, MK, TJ, KB and TM collectively moved Britain's goods, supported military operations worldwide, and provided employment for tens of thousands. Their legacy remains visible in developing countries where ageing Bedfords continue working decades after British production ceased.